How we doing, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. I am your host, Richie, and I am here giving you the goods on a very eventful Week 13 Sunday in the NFL. Crazy things happening in the world of professional football right now. We saw Jordan Love make a huge ascension, outdueling perennial league MVP candidate Mr. Patrick Mahomes, multiple Super Bowl winner. Green Bay Packers currently in the 7th spot. That is massive. Something that I definitely don't believe that anybody saw coming. We saw a Cardinals team yesterday go into Pittsburgh, injure Kenny Pickett, and put a bit of a damper on the Steelers' playoff hopes. We're going to be hitting on that as well. But we can't start or really go anywhere without starting here. How about those San Francisco 49ers yesterday? 49ers send huge message to the entire NFL after 42-19 beatdown of the NFC leading Eagles. This game, unfortunately, usually it's the refs, but this particular game, unfortunately, is going to get overshadowed by a fight between a security guard and a star player. Dre Greenlaw got into it with Big Dom, who is the security detail for the link. Regardless of what Greenlaw did or didn't do, when you insert yourself into a fight that's going on a football field and you are not a referee and you want to put hands on someone, whatever the results are after that, that's what they're going to be. And that's exactly what happened. Greenlaw gets ejected. Big Dom was asked to leave the field as well. From a fairness standpoint, let's just say hypothetically if the Eagles were better yesterday and they win the game, Greenlaw is a big part of what the 49ers do. Not an even trade. You're not losing a coach. You're not losing a player. Big Dom is a security detail. Looks like the NFL there is going to be dulling out some serious punishment, and I think there's a possibility that he might actually have to be fired. I don't really know what would grab someone to want to insert themselves in a game. And the only thing I could think is that just maybe the Eagles made this guy feel a little too comfortable as one of the guys. And I'm all for treating your employees well, but he overstepped his boundaries. As the game goes, the San Francisco 49ers took about the first 18 minutes of the game to truly get into their offense. But once they did, there was no turning back. Deebo Samuel, undeniably the player of the game. And with this win, and with the 49ers heading next to Arlington to take on the Eagles heading to Arlington to take on the Cowboys, this turns into a situation where we could be looking at a tie in the NFC East. By the way, the Eagles still control their own destiny, even with a loss next week in Dallas. The Cowboys would essentially have to run the table given the not so difficult remaining schedule for the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles do have to still make a trip to Seattle, which is not a gimme. Dallas would essentially have to run the table. But more importantly than that, with this head-up loss, the 49ers could take over the 1 spot next week, where the road would move from potentially going through Philly. Now you're talking about going through Santa Clara. These 49ers, in addition to impressive road victories during the course of the year in places like Jacksonville, like Pittsburgh, now Philly, and a home beatdown against the Dallas Cowboys, I would have to say that barring injuries, the 49ers are in the driver's seat through and through to represent that conference in the title game. I've been saying for weeks that I was fearful that the Eagles secondary was going to start giving up some big plays and just their defense in general. The 49ers yesterday bullied this team around, both on offense and on defense. And right now, this is a team that's clicking on all cylinders. Brock Purdy is playing out of his mind as well. You have the best running back in professional football, the most versatile running back in Christian McCaffrey. And right now, it just really appears to me that the only team that could stop the 49ers is actually them themselves. Because even when I look at the other conference and I look at the AFC, while it is a very ultra competitive division, I don't believe the top of the AFC is as strong as the top of the NFC. And I really do believe that this is the 49ers year, like I said, barring a major injury to a piece like a McCaffrey, a Debo, or, God forbid, a Brock Purdy. But this team is scary good right now. And they've been flirting with winning a Super Bowl over the course of the last few years. They've been close, but this potentially could really be their year. They more than got their just due revenge after not even having a functional quarterback last year in the title game. It's not all doom and gloom for Philly. They got to get back to the drawing board. They have a huge divisional matchup with the Dallas Cowboys. I think Philly still wins the NFC East, barring a complete collapse, because of the fact that they have the tiebreakers. What Philly has working for them is that it's week 13 about to be over. And yesterday was their first conference loss. That is an advantage they have over Dallas, even if Dallas wins the rematch. And when I look at who Dallas has remaining on their schedule, they still have to play the Seahawks. They still have to play the Bills, the Dolphins, and the Lions. 2 games against those teams. 2 of those are in question at least. It's going to be tough. Where in Philly's case, outside of next week, it's the Seattle game. I mean, any given Sunday for sure, anything can happen, but the Eagles are still very much in position to probably win the East. But when I think about how close the Buffalo game was, when I think about how close the Dallas game was, and those are both in Philly's backyard, I do believe, and I've been saying this for weeks, that the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles will have a third meeting. And I do believe the Dallas Cowboys, even if on the road, should be able to beat these guys. Definitely got to be humbling for the Eagles. They have mastered winning close games, but there was nothing close about this. Complete separation of the entire game in the third quarter. But I think Philly had a chance to jump on the Niners early, and they didn't take advantage when they had to settle for 2 field goals. Jalen Hurts got dinged up too. It looks like he's going to be okay, but definitely I'm sure it was a long gasp for the Philly faithful. And there's just something to be said when you can go into somebody's backyard and push them around like that. The 49ers, not just this year, but in the Kyle Shanahan era, regardless of who's manning down quarterback, whether it was Jimmy Garoppolo, now you have Brock Purdy, you've had some backups that have had to do work with injuries. This team consistently goes on the road and wins big games. They really put their stamp on that a few years back when they went into icy Lambeau and pushed the Packers around. But this 49er team is for real. They have an answer for pretty much every aspect. And if there is a weakness to look for on this 49er team, offensive line play to a level not the best, but they have more than compensated and done great with everything they have on both sides of the ball, and even special teams is working for them. They are a dangerous, dangerous team. And it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. But as of right now, I'm saying it. NFL Power Rankings better have those 49ers at number 1 after what I witnessed yesterday. Got to talk about my late father's favorite team as well. They're the second story here. The Pack is back. Jordan Love impresses in huge primetime win, outdueling Patrick Mahomes in 27-19. Packers upset victory in Lambeau. I must admit, I didn't see this coming. I knew that the Packers have been playing better. But after Kansas City was kind of sleepwalking through the first half of that Vegas Raiders game last week, I really did not expect the Packers to outplay them on this level. It's an 8-point victory, but it's a lot more than that in terms of a psychological edge that the Packers gain here. This is a team that early on in the season has really taken some time to figure out how to win. And Jordan Love, whenever you are in a first-year starting situation, it's a week-to-week growth. Sometimes you take a few steps forward and then you take a few steps back. But right now, the Green Bay front office is looking rather genius by pulling the trigger, having the guts to trade 4-time league MVP Aaron Rodgers, first ballot Hall of Famer for sure. We all know what happened with Rodgers this year. He unfortunately got hurt 5 plays into the season. But while Rodgers has flirted with making a return, given the state of the New York Jets right now, I'm not even convinced that that makes sense. Idris Salam, I didn't expect that from the Pack. Nah, brother, neither did I. Idris, just to let you know, buddy, I backed up your college show about 15 minutes because I wanted to kind of coincide when I get out of here. I'll be getting your show up. So I moved it 15 minutes back so that way we didn't step on each other with our two shows. Idris is bringing us the College Monday reaction, and there's plenty to speak on in the college football world as well, with all that's went down with FSU not getting the nod to the BCS. Very controversial. And in my eyes, I'll just give you my 2 cents quickly. I think they're getting screwed because of the fact that their quarterback got hurt and the powers that be don't believe that they'll be a great representative. And that's not fair because you're punishing a lot of kids that overcame a lot of things to win. And I am far from an FSU fan, but what's right is right and what they're doing is wrong. At least next year, there will be more teams invited to this dance. But what angers me about this is the committee of the BCS will not be accountable because of the rule changes. And that's wrong because you're playing with a lot of kids' futures and a lot of kids' careers and moments. And it's very wrong. You go undefeated, you play in a reputable conference, you deserve to have that opportunity. And FSU just got screwed. We're going to be moving it along to back to the Packers. They're in the 7th spot right now, everyone. The Green Bay Packers are, if the season ended today, your final wild card. And it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out because the team that's in front of them, the Minnesota Vikings, have been falling down. You got a Rams team that's threatening to potentially be in the mix as they got a W over the Cleveland Browns yesterday. And this back third of the NFC is really looking interesting. I mean, you have a Detroit Lions team that currently is in first place in the North, but they look very vulnerable. It looks like the Vikings are starting to lose some of that Josh Dobbs magic the last few weeks after that pitiful, pitiful defeat to a very bad Chicago Bears team. And even the Chiefs, they got to be worried on the AFC right now. You got a Jacksonville team playing a big game tonight that could potentially be in the mix for the number 1 seed. But the one thing that I stand firm on is I don't think anybody's beating the 49ers. I think about from a matchup-based standpoint from the AFC, what they have to offer, who matches up best with these 49ers. And the only logical answer that I could give right now is maybe the Miami Dolphins. Miami got off to a slow start in that game that they played overseas, but they did make quite a game out of it in the second half. Whenever you have all those offensive options, you have to give Miami a chance against anybody. The other team is the Baltimore Ravens, a team that nobody is talking about. And that would be very interesting to see if that's a rematch going back to years earlier when Joe Flacco went head-to-head with Colin Kaepernick back in the 2012 season. Game was played in 2013. We're going to move it along for a moment here to the AFC North. Kenny Pickett is going to be undergoing surgery, but according to what I've read, it's not season ending, but the season is running out of time. This is a Pittsburgh Steelers team that's been offensively challenged all year. And when you get beat by the lowly Arizona Cardinals, a team that in most people's opinions is going to be picking first or second in this draft, and with playoff time around the corner, it's got to be rough to lose that kind of game in front of your home faithful. But the silver lining for the Pittsburgh Steelers, without a doubt, the silver lining has to be that they are able to not really get hurt with losing ground because the Cleveland Browns welcomed Joe Flacco back to the NFL yesterday, and they had a rough go against a Los Angeles Rams team that's ascending into the NFC wildcard picture. Ravens didn't play. Bengals look to upset the Jags tonight in Duval. Jake Browning, backup quarterback for Joe Burrow, definitely has been given the reins and the trust of his coaching staff to run the offense the same way they would as if Joe Burrow was in the mix. But right now, the way the Jaguars are playing, they're only 500 at home, so this is an opportunity to finally get a winning record in Duval for the year and apply more pressure in their pursuit of the number 1 seed. So the Jacksonville Jaguars are definitely ascending. Good friend of the show, former host was the Jordan Patrick show, my man, Jordan Patrick. Definitely excited about his pick'em pool because if this game goes over 47, regardless of who wins, I come into a little bit of money there. But my prediction, as I posted on IG yesterday, was 27-19 in favor of the Jaguars. I'm sticking with that pick. I think the Bengals are going to show up. I think this is the Bengals' last stand. They're going to show some pride. But the Jaguars just have too much for them right now. And the Bengals have also struggled to consistently run the football. And I think that's going to be a big issue tonight where Browning might get picked off a couple of times. You can't beat a team like Jacksonville if you can't run the football. And I think that's what Cincinnati is going to be walking into. As the Browns go, no surprise to me, I had mentioned it coming into the week that quarterback is a real issue. And no disrespect to the former Super Bowl MVP, Joe Flacco, but his best years are long gone. And when you got to call this guy off the couch and hope that he could bring you some magic, it's definitely a show of desperation. This team has been recycling quarterbacks, it seems like, every 3 weeks. And it's unfortunate because the Bengals do have a championship caliber defense. But similar to Pittsburgh, offensively challenged, and whoever gets in the playoffs out of those two, assuming that at least one of them gets it, it's going to be a short stay. You cannot win in January with the quarterback play that the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns have not had this year. AFC South, the Texans win a huge showdown against the Broncos for wild card positioning. I got to say that the real surprise here has got to be the Indianapolis Colts with Gardner Minshew. Former starter for the Jacksonville Jaguars turned spot starter now as he has not been able to reclaim a starting gig. But with the Anthony Richardson injury, he has a rare opportunity to be a starter every week right now, and the team has really responded to him. They showed a lot of moxie yesterday, overcoming a 2-score lead. Injury report in the game, Derrick Henry suffered what is believed to be a concussion, so best wishes to him. As the Titans go, this loss more or less buries them out of any chance to make a late season run and sneak into the wild card picture. They're a team under construction for sure. And while I don't wish it on him, I do believe that head coach Mike Vrabel might be in a position where he potentially loses his job. That's unfortunate. It's a very fickle business. I think he's a good coach, but results are what ultimately matters. But, people's families are affected when coaches get fired, and you never like seeing that stuff. Mike Vrabel's a great football man. He was a hell of a player once upon a time. So, unfortunately, I don't think he's going to be there next year, especially when you have his former head coach, Mr. Bill Belichick, who might be changing addresses. And that, too, will be very interesting to see how that plays out. Do I think the Colts could sustain? I mean, we're coming up on the final month of the season. I certainly didn't have them making it this far. And I did say that they were going to lose this game yesterday. So maybe I'm wrong about these guys. I know a year ago I was pretty high on them coming into the year and they disappointed me. And I think maybe because of that, I didn't feel too good about them this year. But Gardner Minshew definitely has the moxie and the respect of his teammates to pretty much get them to play hard and to buy into running through a wall for him. And that's huge in terms of team building. The Texans, this is another team that it could go literally down to the wire final week of the season. Whether they get into the playoffs or not this year, CJ Stroud has definitely asserted himself as one of the best young quarterbacks in this league. And, looking ahead towards next week, obviously later in the week, we're going to do our preview show and give you our picks. There are a couple of games that draw my interest that I do want to speak on here. It goes without saying, Philadelphia making the trip to Arlington is going to be a war. I'm going to tip my hand a little here and tell you that I feel very confident that the Dallas Cowboys are going to win that football game. We have another big one in Jersey, and it's not because of my team. It's because of what the Packers are playing for. There are 2 Monday Night Football games next week, and one of them is the Giants hosting the Green Bay Packers. I believe that while the Giants' defense has played very well lately, the Packers have so much to play for right now. And it doesn't have that same feel last year when they got off to a crummy start and then they tried to make a late run. This is a little different. This is a new era. This is a new regime. And the Giants have just struggled so awfully to really put up any kind of points. So I think Green Bay's going to get the win on the road against my team. And I believe that they're going to stay in contention for the playoff run. And I do want to speak on the Rams for a moment, just pulling up next week's schedule. This is another interesting one. Interconference matchup, they head out to Baltimore to take on the AFC leading Ravens. I do think that that is a particular game that could turn into a shootout. OBJ's former team, he's actually going to be playing against. Normally when you think former team, you're like, oh, he's not playing the Giants. OBJ has never played the Giants. I've always craved that matchup. But although the Ravens are where they are in the standings, and although the Rams are clawing to get into the NFC wildcard picture, I believe it's going to be a great game. I think the NFC is a lot stronger than the AFC. Before I get out of here, I wanted to speak on the parody and just some of the unwatchable nature of certain games that we see. The Atlanta Falcons taking on the New York Jets yesterday was every bit of the ugly part of the NFL. Now, I want to make this clear. Both teams were playing very hard. Let me just make that clear. But it was just ugly. The weather sucked. The quarterback play was awful. You got to feel for Coach Robert Saleh. He'll turn pretty soon. He's going to be pointing to the crowd to see if somebody could throw a football from out there, because this poor guy just has nothing at the quarterback position. And while I do believe that Aaron Rodgers might be able to return, when I think about the Jets' record, is it even worth it at this point? I'm going to say no. I think they have to protect Aaron Rodgers from himself right now. And I think it would be an awful, awful decision to allow that man to play, give him the full year to recover, come back next year and chase a championship, because this team does have enough to win a championship, assuming that Aaron Rodgers is healthy. Their defense is legit. But unfortunately, you just can't. I apologize. I am so sorry about that, guys. I was just trying to hit on a banner here from my cell phone, and I didn't realize that I hit my audio. My apologies for that screeching sound. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers cannot be allowed to come back. It is a horrible, horrible decision if they go that route. Ryan Shedd. Watch out for the Rams. Packers, Rams, maybe the Vikings are the ones that are going to fall backwards, Shedd. I think that's kind of where I potentially could be out with that. It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. It really is. And sometimes that's the most exciting round of the actual playoffs, is that super wild card weekend, because while you do have teams that are division winners, some of them are regressing at the wrong time, where you have teams that are clawing, fighting, and scraping to get into the playoffs. And that is where a lot of these things happen. You know, you get these upsets. I've said on many a show that this year's Lions remind me of last year's Vikings. But you know something, dude? After what I saw the Philadelphia Eagles look like yesterday against your team, maybe the Eagles got a little bit of that too. You know, time will reveal that. I don't want to bring too much out when you get your butt kicked by the 49ers, because when the 49ers are on, they have made a lot of good football teams look bad. And that's why I believe that they are the real deal this year. But way too early prediction based off of what I'm looking at right now. I've got the 49ers and the Cowboys playing in the title game. I do believe that Philadelphia will hold on to the East, but I don't think they're beating Dallas in the third meeting. I think Dallas has enough to take care of Philly this year. That first matchup, revisit it, I think Dallas outplayed them. Nobody's beating the 49ers. I made that clear. They're going to be the NFC representative. As the AFC goes, based on what I'm looking at right now, it's funny, man. It's like I'm a little hesitant to put my money or to believe in Baltimore because of Lamar Jackson's bad playoff record. But this is a new look Raven team. Their defense has been for real. And while the Miami Dolphins haven't exactly stacked wins against anybody all that impressive, it's hard for me to just discount that they could turn it and take it to the bowl. It goes without saying that Miami would probably have to be the 1 seed, or at least get a second home playoff game to have their best opportunity. Granted, they played a bad Commander team yesterday, but I do think winning in a cold environment does something for Miami's mental moving forward. 49ers Dolphins as of right now. This could change week to week. Based on what I'm seeing right now at this very moment, San Francisco 49ers, Miami Dolphins. That is going to be your Super Bowl, a rematch of Dan Marino, Joe Montana. The only year that Marino went to a Super Bowl. It's actually the last time that the Dolphins have even been to a Super Bowl. They got ran in that game by a superior 49er team. And oddly enough, Dan Marino was never able to get back to the bowl. Final minute, we're going to be signing off now because I want to switch it over to my man Idris Salam, who worked on a college show, College Monday. He wants to talk about all the mess that's happening with the BCS as well as some other issues in the college football game. Look for us later in the week as we're going to be bringing you our Week 14 NFL preview. Like to subscribe to the channel, the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast on YouTube. And I wish everybody a great Monday and an even better week. Thank you for hanging with me this morning, and I hope you all have a great day. Take care, everybody.